Okay, please welcome to the stage Coach Joe Kennedy. All right.
All right, everybody can hear me okay? All right. How many are familiar with my story, Coach Joe Kennedy? Couple? How many people have seen the movie Average Joe? Oh, this is going to be great. I love it. All right. So there is nothing remarkable or special or anything about me. I am really just the average guy. So I was born into a family that didn't want kids. I was put up for adoption. I was in and out of group homes, foster homes, boys' homes, and I was a terror. Uh, Anybody in here is ever been expelled from school? Anyone? One. Yes, I knew I had one. There he is. Thank you, brother. I'm not the only one. So the first time I got expelled was in third grade. Now, can you imagine that? What is that, like 9 years old? I mean, how much trouble can a 9-year-old get into? I got kicked out of every school. I was a fighting kid and I was just horrible. I was a really, really bad kid. And I needed to do something with my life. And I didn't want to be known as the kid that was always in trouble and was, destined to be locked up or go to jail or, be on the streets, be some bum or something. I wanted to become something more than myself. So what I did is I joined the Marine Corps and I thought, well, man, I need some discipline. I need something to stand for, something that makes me better than myself. So I joined the Marine Corps and I served for 20 years. I got to serve with some of the best men and women in the world that you could possibly imagine. I got to serve in a time of peace. I got to serve in a time of war, went to the Gulf War. So I've seen all around the world and I've seen the best and the worst that humanity has to offer. And America we are such a spoiled brat nation. We are so spoiled and we got it so good here. And I hope a lot of you guys will go out and travel and see what some of the other third world countries look like out there to bring more appreciation back to what we have here. So as I was serving in the Marine Corps, it became like my life's calling. It was something that I really believed in, and it was for standing up for the Constitution of the United States. I wasn't a good kid. I wasn't a good scholar. I wasn't a good model, a role model for anybody. But when I got into the Marines, I saw that when we stand there and we do the oath of enlistment, I tell you, it still gives me the chills and the heebie-jeebies up and down my arms every time I swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. That really meant something to me. And it was something that I belonged to. So I felt like I was making a difference in everybody's lives. So you fast forward that, I go through the Marine Corps. I'm getting ready to retire from the Marine Corps, and I meet up with my childhood sweetheart. Now, we met when we were 9, that 9-year-old kid that was a punk. I met her when we were 9. I proposed to her the first day that I met her, and she thought I was kind of creepy at that time. But 31 years later, you fast forward, I finally marry her. We meet up and we get married. Now, she was a good Christian girl. She grew up in the church. She knew all the Bible stuff. She spent Sundays in church. She did Wednesday youth groups, did the Bible things, went to Bible camps, helped out with the youth groups everywhere, every summer. And I always thought how cute that was. I was like, oh, look at her. She's over there talking to her God. Oh, that's so cute. And every Sunday she would say, hey, hon, would you like to go to church with us? And I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm going to go watch football or work in my truck. I'm going to go do something else. I don't want to sit in some service, listen to some dude talk about some guy who's been dead for 2,000 years. It seemed like the most boringest thing to do. But then my son one day, a couple months into our marriage, and my son said, well, if he doesn't have to go to church, do I? And let me tell you, that hit me hard. So all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, man, I'm being a bad example for my kid. So I said, all right, I'm going to go into church. I went into church and I sat there and I had to listen to this preacher, just like Travis's guy over here, Pastor Travis, sit there and talk about how much God loves us and Jesus this and Jesus that, and how much money I'm supposed to give to the church. And I didn't like that at all, let me tell you. However, I was failing so bad as a husband that some of this was starting to, seep through. Now, I was an atheist up to this point. I had this big chip on my shoulder. There was no God. It's that fairy tale thing that you tell people, oh, well, when you die, you could go to heaven. That's what I always imagined God to be like. But as I was failing in this marriage, I really wanted it to work. And one day they started playing the praise and worship music. And I tell you, man, that's the stuff that really hit me. I was sitting there and I don't know what happened, but I was sitting there in the church and they started playing all this stuff. And next thing I know, I'm standing up and I'm like, oh my God, am I having a heart attack or a stroke or something? And I go walking up and I walk up to the altar and I fall to my knees and I just start crying. And Marines aren't known to cry a lot. Just don't get me wrong. Don't think I'm some big baby or anything. But I'm sitting up there and I'm crying. I don't know what's happening to me. And I just said to God, I said, God, if you give me my wife and fix our marriage, I will give you my life. And it was like he smacked me upside the head. Deal sold. And I didn't know what I was signing up for. About a week later, I got offered a job to work at Bremerton High School, which is up by Seattle, Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest. Anybody been over to the left coast lately? It's pretty crazy over there, huh? Yeah, it's real crazy over there. So you'll understand. So very liberal town, small town, good hardworking, blue collar. And they asked me to come and coach high school football. Now, I didn't know anything about football. What am I going to teach them? I didn't want to coach football. I don't know anything about football. I was a wrestler and a fighter. I don't know anything about that stuff. But something I heard was from a little voice. And I said, well, I will go to the interview. I went to the interview. They offered me the job because I was good at team building and discipline and being able to help these young men become better young men. That's what I was applying for. Now, that weekend, I said, well, give me the weekend to think about it. I went home and I'm thinking about it. I'm praying about it because, I'm a brand new baby Christian. I don't know what that means to be a Christian. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to God. God, is this something you really want me to do? And that little voice, I heard it again and heard it again. And so I'm flipping through the channels in the middle of the night and this movie comes on, Facing the Giants. Anybody seen that one? Couple? Yeah. Now, I mean, their budget was what, $55 to make that thing? But I tell you, the Holy Spirit works in the weirdest ways, boy. God reached through that TV and grabbed my heart and for the second time threw me onto the ground. And I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out and I'm like, I hear you, God. It was the first time I heard my calling. That was the coolest thing. When you hear God's calling, that just changes your entire life. And here I am. This isn't when I'm a kid. This isn't when I'm, growing up. This is when I'm in my 40s, Now all of a sudden I'm hearing what God wants me to do. And so I said, just like in the movie, God, I'll give you the glory after every game. I'm not very original. I stole it right from the movie. Give you the glory after every game, win or lose, right there on the battlefield. And that's what I did. And so I started coaching after every single game. I was the assistant coach for the varsity and the head coach for the junior varsity, which means I have 2 games every week. And after every game, when the kids come out and they meet at midfield, they shake hands and good game, but they're really saying all the bad words to each other, They would go off and I would just take a knee and I would look at the scoreboard and I'd just take a knee for, 15, maybe 30 seconds and say, God, thank you for letting me be part of this. Thank you for these young men, for what they did on the field, for that battle. Just really being thankful to be part of it. And I was doing this for months. And then finally, one of the kids came over to me on my team and said, Coach, what are you doing out there after the game? And I said, well, I'm just saying a prayer, thanking God for what you guys did. They said, can we join? I started laughing. I was like, this is America. Of course you could join. It's a free country. You can do whatever the heck you guys want to do. So they started coming out, and over the years it grew and grew. And they, it being a small town, the kids, my kids, they go to like Pee Wee, they play Pee Wee sports together. And then they go to middle school. Then when they go to high school, they kind of split off and go to different high schools. So everybody lives all in the same community. Everybody knows each other on all the teams. And they said, hey, can we invite John and Kevin and Bob and all these kids to join us in the prayer? And I was like, man, this is your team. It's a free world. You guys do what you want to do. So they started coming out. And in our 8th season, so this went on for 8 years, it grew. And then in our 8th season, we had every single school in our district when we played praying on the 50-yard line after football games. That was a pretty cool thing to see. Now, with something cool like that at a public school, well, would somebody say something about that? Of course, somebody sure did. Somebody saw what we were doing and came over or called our principal and said, hey, I was at a football game and I got to tell you what I saw. I came from another school district. I'd never seen this before, but I saw your kids praying on a football field with the opposing team. And that was just awesome. I didn't know you could do that. And I thought, well, hey, that's a cool thing. You just get a compliment like that. Well, with any compliment, of course, what do you want to do with it? You want to start an investigation, right? So they started an investigation to make sure that we're following all the school's policies on whatever they call that, separation of church and state and all this other stuff, all this made up stuff that they're telling me about. And the school only had one thing. It says that you cannot encourage nor discourage kids in prayer. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine. I don't care. If they come out, cool. If they don't, cool. I didn't care in the slightest bit. So I just continued to doing what I was doing. And their lawyers were like, oh, can't do that. And it started hitting the news and they said, you need to stop praying with your team. So I stopped. I never prayed with my team again, but I was still praying on the football field. And by then it was already viral. It was all across the United States. The power of those cell phones and social media is just insane. I got a call the next day from a friend that lives here in Virginia. She says, you need to turn on the TV. They got your football game on and you're on. And I'm going, oh man, that was a cool game. Maybe they caught the ESPN. They're gonna show the highlights of our game. No, coach, praying coach to be fired for praying. And I'm just like, oh crap. I don't want to be known as a praying coach. I mean, I'm the guy over there that had this big, dip of tobacco in his lip and, spitting everywhere, yelling at kids. And, Johnny screwed up. I, choke him a little bit or something. And, I mean, they could have fired me for a million things, but praying should not have been one of them. I still can't wrap my brain around that. So when they said, stop praying with the kids, I did. I never prayed with my players again. But I continued on doing it because it came down to the point of when I was a Marine, I stood for something, and that was the Constitution. And now they're telling me the Constitution doesn't apply to me. And it was only a 15-second prayer. And they said, well, you need to choose between your faith and your job. And I had a real hard time with that. That's where I really drew the line. And I'm sitting there going, man, what do I do? I mean, what would you do in that situation when your boss tells you to stop doing something? Now, this is a 15-second prayer. So this is something simple. It's a simple ask. My wife, she works for the school district. She's their HR director. So every time somebody gets in trouble, we got to go see the HR person. So I'm in trouble. I got to go see my wife. And she's like, you need to stop doing this. So I went over, talked to my team, and I said, hey, guys, here's the situation. And I told them, and they said, Coach, can't you just give in? I know your prayer is important to you and stuff, but can't you just give in and do what the school says? And the moment they said that to me, I knew there was no way on God's green earth I was going to be able to do that. I said, man, no. I tell these kids, I don't care what the score on the scoreboard is. I don't care how much time's left on the clock. You keep fighting until you have nothing left. Now, all of a sudden, I'm stuck where I'm going to be in a fight and it might become uncomfortable to me. man, these kids come out there and they're like, Coach, my hand's broken. I can't play anymore. I'm like, rub some dirt on it. Get back in the game, you know? Now, all of a sudden, just because I'm facing a little adversity, I'm going to stop fighting for what is right. I mean, what kind of hypocrite would I have been if I did that? I've been teaching these guys for 8 years to stand up for what's right and to do the right thing. And now all of a sudden, I'm the guy that could easily just say, oh, you're right. Yeah, I won't do that anymore. And could have stayed as a coach. Would have been fine. But nope, I got fired. Had to have my wife fire me. Don't ever have your wife fire you. That's not good. On the flip side of that, I had to sue her. Yeah, that's where it got really interesting. And we went through the court systems. So the way it starts at the lowest level, but we lost and 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 we lost. We went to the Supreme Court twice and lost 7 times in a row over a 15-second prayer. This cost $6.98 million just for my attorney fees. And was it worth it? In my mind, oh, it absolutely was. It was the principle of it. Only thing I asked for was my job and to be able to pray on the 50-yard line. Because the First Amendment is very clear. The Constitution is very clear to me. And if they're just taking these little bits and pieces away from people, just willy-nilly, what other big stuff is coming? So I was like, no, I'm going to stand here and fight. Finally, we made it to the Supreme Court. We ended up winning. We won 6-3. And now we have more religious freedom here in America than we've had in the past 50 years. So that's every one of you guys. Now, I don't know if you guys know any nerd stuff about, like Roe versus Wade or any of the other things that are Supreme Court like. But Roe versus Wade just got overturned, right? That was huge, right? Well, what we did, it came in right behind. What this did is, so Roe versus Wade, when it got overturned, that just kicked it down to the lower levels, down to the state level, right? What this did is overturned 50 years of bad precedents. There was this old case, got Roe versus Wade. We went against a thing called a Lemon. It was Lemon versus Kurtzman or something. And they had this Lemon test. And the Lemon test and everything with Lemon had to do with separation of church and state and taking God out of our public schools and the public square. And so this is what we were really fighting over. And I didn't know because I just wanted to coach football, man. I didn't want any of this other stuff. But when we win, God was working in the background because of guys and gals just like you that are doing what you're doing. They were part of it. They were supporting me or praying for me. They were just, I'd see them and they'd be like, hey, dude, cool, nice job. So I'm telling you, the future is looking a lot brighter than it was a while ago. So we have more religious freedom now than we've had in past 50 years, meaning that you can stand in public and pray. You can bring a Bible to school. You could wear a cool hat like that dude right there and anywhere you want. We have the freedoms in America, but they have to be exercised. And now that we have this right, if you went to your school and you went to, if you work or all the people that are around you, how many of them know where you stand with the Lord? Does everybody know that you're a Christian? That's kind of a weird question, but why wouldn't everybody know? I mean, you want to freak some people out, go put a Bible on your desk and bring it to school one day and see how people react. I just wear God on my sleeve, man. I'm not a preachy guy. That's up to Pastor Travis and those pastors to do all that stuff. But I stand up for what I believe in. I stand up for the Constitution. And my fight was not a religious thing. It was a freedom thing. And I absolutely am so glad that I did. We did write a book. It's called Average Joe. And if you're like me and never ever read, go watch the movie. It's Googleable. It's real wild. They have this thing called streaming now, Amazon Prime. Watch Average Joe, invite your parents to watch it. And it tells the whole story. To me, it's a big love story between me and my wife and my God. And I've just been blessed that God could take the least likely person, that kid who nobody wanted, who was always in trouble, and have me standing up in front of you guys telling my story. That's cool. That's only God. I got to meet Travis. I was over at his church. That dude, what was his name? Chip Roy. I was just in Texas testifying at the Senate in Texas last week over the Ten Commandments. So this is a very, very small world. And what you do in it does make a difference. So don't feel like you're not, or that you would ever be insignificant, and the things that you do not matter. They do matter. And God sees it all. So I'm just encouraging you guys, get off your butts, stand up, and do what's right. Thank you.